Greetings, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write for Pathos for nearly 10 years, a column called No Longer Quivering, which dealt with quiverful, evangelical, fundamentalism Christianity. The kind of militant Christianity that we've seen do a lot of crazy things lately. If you just bear with me a second, I was going to say, do all the YouTubey things, hit like, subscribe, click the notification bell, do all that stuff if it strikes you. If not, hey, it's all good. It's all good. It's all very good. Don't bully anybody I talk about in this video, and these are my opinions, my considered opinions based upon my knowledge of this subculture. So what am I talking about today? You're probably seeing this on Thursday, September the 1st. Wake me up when September ends. I mean, we're going into fall here, and it doesn't feel like fall. So I'm filming this the night before because on Thursday I'll be walking the beach, painting the cabina. So I'm going to be one busy lady. So I've got this in my brain right now. I'm going to deal with it. I need to say a quote that I just read in a book the other day that I've been sitting here and just thinking about this. This has been just swirling around in my brain. And it fits a lot of our recent discussions. We've talked about things like holy laughter and the different types of things that come up in some of these churches, especially in the charismatic movement, which I was part of for a long time as well. Illusion is no measure of faith. And I believe that very firmly. The other day I was talking about the different things that were going on, the holy laughter, the barking, the people growling, the weird stuff going on, the fire tunnels, all of that weird charismatic stuff we were doing back in the 90s. That's kind of illusionary, I think, and I think it is not a measure of faith. Well, tonight I want to talk about, this morning, 7M. Is 7M part of a high demand, problematic religious group? Or, as some people say, a CULT. I don't like the CULT word because when I think about that, I think about Charles Manson and his followers scratching X's in their forehead. I think about the Hale Boppers and their applesauce with downers in it and rolls of quarters and Nikes. That's the sort of thing that pops in my brain. David Koresh and all his women. Not Christian churches. So I like to call Christian churches that are that way, that have some of those characteristics, high demand religious organizations. It makes more sense than the CULT word. So I don't know if you've seen Renelle Smith's videos. I'm sure by now she has a second one out. I just watched the first one where she went through a Katie Joy Paulson video. And Katie said a lot of stuff. And I don't really want to talk about Katie or whether she's wrong or right, none of that. But what did strike me from listening to her and listening to Renelle take it apart was she doesn't know religion. She doesn't know high demand religious organizations. She's misinterpreting so many things, so many things. So I want to go through a few of those things that were talked about, that Renelle talked about, that Katie talked about. I need to go through these and explain them, just like I explained holy laughter and fire tunnels and all that nonsense the other day. This is the same thing, and these are all things that are things I've written about in my book. There was talk of being threatened with the rapture, that the rapture was the threat, that they were all going to die, rapture threat. That's not at all how that works, and that's not how that's viewed. The rapture is the end of the world, as some religious people think. They think that the elect will get spirited up to the sky, alive or dead, and everyone else will be stuck down here in a hellscape and go through war and famine and all sorts of things. So the belief is that Jesus will meet you in the sky as you're coming up. And you'll see Jesus and you'll go up and you'll miss that whole awful thing going on. It's not a threat, it's more of a promise or a yearned for future than a threat. She's trying to say it is a threat that has to do with 7M. It is not. It is a standard evangelical Christian belief thing, even though there is nothing in the scriptures to support the rapture that I've seen. It's a common piece of hagiography, I think you'd call it. That may not be the right word, but it is a cornerstone belief that is a firm belief that Mrs. Shen was stating, not a threat. The rapture would never be viewed as a threat. It would be viewed as like a longed for home, something you want to happen because you want to go be with Jesus forever and ever. Okay, there are claims of waterboarding. I was talking to someone else the other day in the comments after the piece I did about different things to do with Fundytown, including fire tunnels and holy laughter. And we were talking about whether there was some mistaken of waterboarding, if it was actually old-fashioned baptism that someone had viewed and decided that this is what they were doing. I am guessing that that might actually be the truth of what's being spoke about here, the waterboarding. Many churches, the Baptist church, for example, because that's how they get their name, the Baptist church. So many churches preach baptism by water. And so many of them take you and push you backwards into the water. And I'm thinking from a non-believer standpoint of somebody who's not well versed in religion, that this may look like some kind of weird form of waterboarding. That's the only thing I can think when I hear descriptions and screeches of waterboarding. And talk of obedience. It talks about in the Bible that we're to be obedient to the Lord. And slaves are supposed to be obedient to their masters. Husbands and wives are supposed to be obedient to each other. Obedience is built into the Bible. But obedience is not the same thing as trafficking. It's just not. It has nothing to do with it. Obedience, the theology goes that if you are living in perfect obedience to God and to everything else you're supposed to be obedient to, that you're going to be happy and blessed no matter what you do. You're going to reap the benefits. Now, can obedience be misused? Yes, there are a lot of the patriarchal crowd that misuse the whole idea of obedience in order to manipulate other people. Perfect obedience is part of perfect love, and there is no abuse with that. But because we live in a fallen, broken world, I think it is childish to say that obedience is what the patriarchal crowd says. That kind of obedience to a man is bondage. It is not obedience to the Lord at all. So one of the emails that she was reading says, privileged to serve with you. And then she was trying to say that it was the serving with was a type of threat. Exactly what kind of threat, I don't know. In many churches, they'll say, we're serving together. We're serving together. We're doing all these things for the Lord together. We're serving together. And it is not a threat. It is a blessing. So that is how that is really supposed to be parsed. Not a threat. Not a threat in the least. And there was some talk of bad backgrounds being held over people and used against them. Well, so many people in churches may not have sterling backgrounds. The good, the bad, the ugly. It just is what it is. They're washing the blood of the Lamb. You're supposed to fellowship with them. They're supposed to love them regardless. And there's none of this looking down on somebody because they have a bad, a bad past. You don't do that. So all of these things are things that are mentioned that are actually just regular parts of faith. They don't have anything to do with the CULT. I can't say that 7M is a CULT. They may be part of Shekinah, they're part of Shekinah Church, and Shekinah Church may be a highly problematic high demand group. I don't know. I know that they admire, at least Robert Shin admires two places that I do consider high demand religious groups. One of them would be, I'm having a brain fart here. You're going to have to forgive me for a minute. I'm going to have to. One of them would be Bethel Redding. Bethel Redding is a church that believes in extreme healing. They don't believe in going to the doctor for medicine or any of that. They believe you lay hands on and you heal. I've seen this happen. I've seen people be healed of crazy stuff, but I've also seen more people walk away and not be healed from that kind of theology. As I said in the past, my old church used to be affiliated with Bethel. We went and sat under many teachings by Benny Johnson and Bill Johnson, the leading pastors of that church. And we saw some really weird things come into our church as a result. And I got to see people who would not take their medicine for their MS, for their diabetes, or whatever. When I was part of that, I was encouraged to throw away my VPAP machine, to throw it away and to trust that God would heal me. Well, I did that for a year and I wasn't healed. I was taking my life in my own hands. So I decided to start using my CPAP, VPAP machine at night because I was having low oxygen levels. And low oxygen levels are incompatible with life. That's not to say that nobody ever gets healed, but the way that they approach healing, the way that they approach death is just bizarre. I'm just going to throw that out there. I have seen some scandals through them where they were praying for various people who did not come up out of that grave, and they have this death raising team thing. I wrote a piece about Sean Fouch, I think it is, and some of their theology, and Olive Heigelthal, not sure I'm pronouncing it right, a little girl that died that was a daughter of one of the worship team leaders. And they were praying for her to be raised from the dead, and she was not, unfortunately. So I wrote about them for Pathos. And it was kind of funny because their publicity department, their person that handles that, tried furiously to contact me, and I would not talk to them because I didn't want to hear their BS. I knew their theology inside and out. I'd sat under their teachings. I'd gone to see Bill and Benny many times. And I just knew I knew what they were all about, even though he was trying to claim I didn't know a damn thing about what they were saying or doing. So he tried to contact my editor and a whole bunch of other people and insist that I didn't know what I was talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. Bethel Redding has a pile of problematic theology. One of the things that for me was pretty horrifying was when Sean went around doing these open air worship events in the height of COVID. In the height, people were catching. I would just read that he was going to do this and go, up, another super spreader event on the horizon. But he did it and nobody arrested him, even though he should have probably been arrested for encouraging non-compliance of COVID sanitary measures. The other church that Robert Shin has said he really likes is Hillsong. Hillsong is another one that is a high demand, problematic religious organization. They've been in the news a fair amount. They have had all kind of essay scandals going on. I like some of their music. Their worship team is pretty awesome. But some of the things they teach and the things they're involved with are not necessarily what I would consider good or right. And it makes it really hard as you're a Christian and you're trying to listen to worship music, you're trying to figure out where to be, what to do. I used to absolutely love Bethel Redding's song, Oh Taste and See. I must have sung that song a million times on the platform. The same thing with some of the Hillsong songs I've done again and again and again. But as I came out and started looking back on these illusions of faith, and started realizing that faith isn't fire tunnels, it's not holy laughter, it's not healing. Faith is belief and evidence of those things that are still unseen. Um, it's more of a quiet inward thing, I think, than any amount of shouting. The other day I was playing with my flag, showing you what flagging was like. It's more than all those things, and it's more interior. It's the interior kingdom of you and how you mesh with the divine than it is any amount of following the bad theology of someone else. I'm just going to throw that out there. So does that mean 7M is CULT? No. They're an artist management company. Now, I did see earlier that there is an article that's going around right now that's talking about the same company that did the series on Gwen Shamblin called The Way Down that was on HBO. They're supposed to be working on a special on 7M. I've read no more about it, just that it was going to happen. Deadline has a big article about it, that it's happening. That was, when was this thing taken? When was this thing written? Let me see. It's been a while. I want to say a year ago, maybe. May 12th, 2022. Okay. It's only a few months. It just feels like this year has felt like 5 years, and the previous 2 years felt like 10 years each because of COVID, because we have plague rats like Sean Fauci running around exposing everybody. And I stand by my words. Plague rats all. And it was disgusting to me to find the church universal was taking this stance of, we're not going to love our brothers and sisters. We're going to go out and we're going to flip double birds at this pandemic. That there was a lot of that went on in these type churches. Because Robert Shin of Shekinah Church and 7M has expressed admiration for both Bethel Redding and Hillsong, I have to conclude that Shekinah Church, secretive as it is, because it's quite secretive, and usually that's a bad sign in churches. When a church is secretive, it means that bad things are on the horizon. So anybody that claims those affiliations is probably a high demand religious organization, not a CULT. Like I said before, a CULT is when you're putting your roll of quarters in your pocket and you're taking your trip behind the comet. Not Christian churches. I think here's the thing that people forget with a lot of these churches, even though I'm not in love with some of the ways they do things. We're all supposed to be working towards the same goal. Different strokes for different folks, different styles, different even little theology things, but the same basic message. We're supposed to be following Jesus, and I don't see a whole lot of that going on anywhere, and I know I'm as guilty of it as anyone else. So I'm going to say 7M, no. Not a high demand religious organization, not a CULT. Shekinah Church, not a CULT, but certainly maybe a high demand religious organization. Now, there are a bunch of people that are saying that they have a deal with Netflix going on. That's the reason I mentioned the HBO show. They're saying that Netflix is doing a series on 7M and that they're involved. That's, of course, that troll, Katie Joy. Somebody called Stop Culting that's on Instagram, somebody exposing 7M, and somebody else by the name of CultsYucky. They're all claiming they're working with HBO and with, I can't think, the little foreign guy from one of the television shows, a really strange name. Uh, that I don't even remember what it was. That shows you how much I don't pay attention to social, not social media, but to like things like television and movies. So they're all saying they're working on this documentary series with Netflix. I doubt it for a couple of reasons. And I thought it was the HBO one that originally they were all claiming they were working for. Here's the thing about documentarians, and I know this from my own doings with them. They love to take your information and then run with it as if it were their own and cut you out of it. It can be really ridiculous. So for them to say that they're directly working with Netflix is a stretch at most. And I don't think it's true. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. I don't want to have to eat these words, but I might have to say, hey, I was wrong. I originally thought that they said it was going to be the HBO show they're working with, but who knows at this point. Okay, I'm going to get off so I can watch Renell's second video. I'm going to leave a link in the description to the first video. And I'm going to remind you again, the illusion is no measure of faith at all. I hope to be back soon doing live streams. This is kind of an awkward way to do things, to record it and then to go ahead and upload it later, because I still don't have great internet. But it is what it is. I'll see you guys later. When you see this, I will be walking on the beach.